They humiliated me at my own Thanksgiving table, introduced another woman as my replacement, and had no idea I was paying for everything. I didn't argue. I just opened my phone. Ashley was a polished corporate attorney, the kind of woman my mother-in-law, Kimberly, believed truly deserved my husband's future. Not like me. She made sure everyone understood. Kimberly spoke with that icy calm only old money can master, the kind of voice that cuts without ever getting loud. She rested her perfectly manicured hand on Ashley's shoulder, displaying her like a trophy. I sat across the table, calm and composed, at a Thanksgiving dinner I had personally paid for, from the antique silverware to the imported linen napkins. Kimberly was now twisting between her fingers. Ashley wore a deep emerald dress, elegant and intentional. Her smile toward Justin was flawless, rehearsed. She was everything Kimberly thought a proper wife should be. What none of them knew was that I hadn't spent the last 6 months doing routine environmental work. I had been studying something else entirely. I had been measuring toxicity, and this family was overflowing with it. How interesting, I said evenly, passing the cranberry sauce across the table. My field isn't so different from law. We both spend our time identifying dangerous contamination before it destroys everything around it. Sometimes the poison is in the water. Sometimes it's sitting at the table. Madison, my sister-in-law, laughed sharply. Please, don't inflate your little career. This family has a legacy. Ashley wants children. She understands duty. I buttered my roll slowly, watching it melt, staying calm. For 7 years, I had quietly funded their lifestyle, the house, the gatherings, the image, while being treated like an outsider in my own home. They thought my silence meant weakness. They didn't realize I was collecting evidence. Have you ever been made to feel invisible by the people who were supposed to value you? Comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I didn't argue. There was nothing left to negotiate. I placed my knife down gently and reached for my phone. The table went silent. Kimberly's eyes locked onto the screen, instincts kicking in before logic. I opened my banking app and found the pending payment for the catering company working in the kitchen. With one tap, I cancelled it. $3,924 stayed right where it belonged, in my account. And that's when everything changed. Revoked. What are you doing? Justin snapped, his face turning a deep, uncomfortable red. He stared at my phone like it might explode. I placed it gently beside my plate, screen facing up, letting the notification glow between us. I'm reviewing the finances, I said calmly. Since your mother has already selected my replacement and announced her expectations to the board, I assumed it was time to stop sponsoring the performance. I met Kimberly's eyes. The funding for this little production ends tonight. Her forehead twitched just barely a crack in the flawless mask she worked so hard to maintain. Don't be crude, Lauren. Discussing money at the table is vulgar. What's vulgar, I replied evenly, is pretending this estate belongs to you. I turned toward Ashley. Her smile was slipping now, tension pulling at the corners. Did they explain the deed to you? I asked gently. Or did they tell you this house was some ancient family inheritance? I took a slow sip of water and let the silence stretch. This property was passed down to me by my grandmother 2 years before I even met Justin. It's premarital. The deed is in my name. The taxes are paid by my firm. Fully documented. Fully mine. Justin opened his mouth, ready to deliver one of his rehearsed speeches about partnership. I raised a hand, and for the sake of transparency, I continued. My husband isn't the owner here. He's a tenant. He pays rent below market value. Every month. It's legal, recorded, and separate. I looked back at Kimberly. He has never owned a single brick of the legacy you love to brag about. The air felt heavy now. The floral scent that once felt elegant suddenly became suffocating, like perfume sprayed over rot. The fine cutlery, the rare wine, the reputation, it had all been charged to my account while I was dismissed as expendable. In that moment, I understood something clearly. My generosity hadn't been kindness. It had been a resource, and they had drained it dry. I watched Madison's face pale as her fingers hovered over the heirloom silver I had personally maintained for years. For 7 years I had played the quiet daughter, absorbed insults, smiled through dismissal, told myself endurance would earn belonging. But endurance isn't weakness. Sometimes it's survival. I had mistaken silence for safety when it had only kept me compliant. That illusion shattered tonight. Do you want to talk about useless, Madison? I asked calmly. Or should we discuss the nearly $900,000 in invisible labor I poured into holding this family together? The table went completely still. Not a single person breathed. The only sound left in the room was ice tapping against glass as Ashley shifted in her seat, uncomfortable, just like the $48,000 had quietly transferred last winter to erase Richard's gambling losses. I looked toward my father-in-law, the man I once admired. He was suddenly very interested in the pattern of the tablecloth. I didn't cover that debt because I supported your habits, I said evenly. I did it so your legacy wouldn't be dragged through the Sunday headlines. I saved this family from public collapse, and none of you even knew the payment deadline existed. Richard sank lower in his chair, the patriarch, reduced to a liability. Or maybe we should talk about the $60,000 a year I've been underwriting for you. Madison, I continued, my voice steady, facts landing like entries in an open ledger. The club memberships, the overseas internships that somehow involved more boutiques than boardrooms. I funded all of it while you mocked my career and dismissed my work. I wasn't just contributing, I was subsidizing failure. I've been the quiet investor keeping this entire operation afloat, I said, paying for your image while you looked down on the very source of it. Then I turned to Justin. He sat frozen, his impressive job title suddenly weighing on him instead of protecting him. And you, I said calmly. Your career exists because my firm approved contracts for your father's company. Without my authorization, your entire division disappears. For years, I told myself silence was the price of peace, that patience would eventually turn into belonging. I was wrong. I wasn't building bridges. I was digging deeper into debt. Tonight I stopped. This wasn't a breakdown. It was a final audit. My generosity had been a line of credit they abused for nearly a decade, and tonight it was officially closed. I leaned back, composed, precise like one of my own schematics while shock around the table curdled into something desperate. Kimberly didn't apologize. She didn't plead. Her eyes narrowed, the polished hostess giving way to something sharper underneath. You think you can just buy your way out of this family? She hissed, venom barely contained. You're unstable, Kimberly said coldly. This little display proves it. No one will take you seriously. We're respected people. By morning, the savannah air felt heavier than usual, not just with heat, but with whispers. Kimberly moved fast. She always did. By breakfast, rumors were already circulating. Calls, messages, concerned check-ins from people who barely knew me, board members, neighbors, even acquaintances from church events. Kimberly had rewritten the story. I was suddenly unreliable, unprofessional, emotionally compromised. She wasn't attacking my feelings. She was going after my credibility, the one thing she couldn't purchase. Then Justin's messages started coming in. Not apologies, not accountability, excuses. I only looked elsewhere because you were distant. You were always working. A man needs to feel important. He tried to frame betrayal as neglect, infidelity as a reaction to my ambition. Tears would have been inefficient. Panic would have wasted energy. I sat in my home office, jasmine blooming outside the window, no longer comforting, just a reminder of how rot can hide behind beauty. I didn't respond to a single rumor, didn't defend myself, didn't explain. I opened my spreadsheet. Every lie became a data point. Every charge, every message, every timeline ever. This wasn't emotional fallout. It was preparation. The prenup lay open on my desk, clean and precise. A document Justin had signed years ago without reading closely, confident power would always be his. I made one call. By noon, the first move landed. Justin was served at his office my connections had secured for him years earlier. The papers included an eviction notice from the estate and a civil claim totaling $900,000 for misused funds. But the real impact came later that afternoon. Kimberly arrived at the law firm with Justin beside her, ready to intimidate, ready to control the room. They stopped cold when the door opened. Ashley walked in, not in silk, not smiling. She wore a charcoal suit and carried a briefcase. She passed them without a glance and took a seat next to me. Kimberly, Justin, she said evenly. I believe we've met, though under different assumptions. Ashley wasn't a replacement. She wasn't a distraction. She was my lead counsel, one of the most aggressive attorneys in high-stakes divorce litigation. For weeks she'd played a role, listened, documented, every boast, every careless admission, every assumption they made when they thought they were untouchable. Kimberly's face collapsed, not dramatically, but completely, because for the first time, she understood something devastatingly simple. Money only works when you actually have it. And theirs was gone. Kimberly had always believed her status was something permanent woven into her bloodline. Untouchable. But it wasn't strength. It was costume jewelry bought and maintained with money siphoned from my estate. Once the financial illusion was stripped away, there was nothing underneath to hold her upright. Her legacy wasn't a fortress. It was loose sand kept in place by my account balance. They weren't stunned by betrayal. They were frozen because I had finally stepped off the stage. In that quiet conference room, the truth settled in. They had never controlled the game. They had simply been moving across a board I owned from the beginning. Ashley opened her briefcase. The soft click echoed through the room like a final punctuation mark. She didn't offer negotiation. She slid a single document across the table. A forensic accounting report dense with highlighted transfers, timelines, and verified signatures. Did you really think we wouldn't examine the trust? I asked calmly. The environmental project fund Richard created 3 years ago, the one meant to restore the waterways you publicly champion. Justin's confidence collapsed instantly. Color drained from his face as he reached for the pages, hands unsteady. That's a misunderstanding, he said weakly. We were protecting the assets. By forging Richard's signature, Ashley replied, leaning forward. She pointed to a series of transfers rerouted into Kimberly's offshore accounts. That moves this well beyond civil court. Her voice remained level. Wire fraud, identity misuse, embezzlement. This wasn't just exposure. It was dismantling. Their status hadn't been earned. It had been manufactured through crimes committed against the very people they claimed as family. They hadn't just taken money. They had taken trust, and the law doesn't negotiate with that. My father, Justin whispered, voice breaking. Does he know? He does now, I said evenly. I showed him everything this morning. He chose integrity over denial. The rain began at dusk, steady, relentless. I was in my study, finalizing plans to convert the East Wing into a new research center when a security alert appeared on my tablet. Kimberly stood at the gate. Her hair was soaked flat, makeup streaked. The image she once wore so carefully dissolved by the storm. The coat she clutched worth more than most cars afford, no warmth now. I approached the door. I didn't open it. Through reinforced glass, I watched as she struck the wood, her voice muffled by rain and distance. Please, Lauren, she cried. They're going to arrest Justin. The authorities are already there. You can stop this. We're family, she pleaded. Behind her, Justin stood in the driveway, soaked, shaking, exposed. I didn't speak. Some doors, once closed, are sealed for a reason. He looked at the house, my house, with the expression of someone who finally understood the truth. He had never lived there. He had only occupied space I allowed. He lifted a hand, hesitant, almost asking for protection from the storm he helped create. I rested my palm against the cool glass, feeling the vibration of Kimberly's desperate knocking. For years, I had asked for acceptance, for kindness, for a place where I didn't feel like an outsider. They answered with dismissal, contempt, and quiet theft. Now they were asking for mercy, for relief from consequences they had chosen. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I turned the lock. The sound echoed softly through the entryway, final complete. Then I switched off the porch light, leaving them in the darkness they had tried to place me in for years. I walked back into the warmth of my home. That wasn't cruelty. It was closure. 2 weeks later, the decision came down. Clear, decisive. Justin was sentenced for financial crimes tied to misused funds. Kimberly avoided prison through a plea agreement but lost everything else. The influence she once wielded vanished overnight. The whispers she had once controlled turned in her direction and bought and unfiltered. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of the estate. It now bore a new name, the Richard and Lauren Environmental Research Center. Below, young engineers set up equipment for a new water filtration project. Their voices focused, hopeful-filled, a space that had once felt heavy and hollow. The grounds had changed too. Native plants replaced ornamental displays. Life replaced appearance. Healing wasn't instant. There were courtrooms, headlines, and the quiet grief of letting go of the family I once hoped for. But in releasing what was toxic, I found something solid. Myself. Walking away from blood isn't loss when that blood harms you. Sometimes, it's self-preservation. By letting go of the need to belong to them, I finally belonged to me. The air no longer smelled of jasmine and pretense. It smelled like rain, like earth, like possibility. Letting go didn't make me empty. It made me free. I didn't just reclaim my life. I transformed a prison into a sanctuary. Justice doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes, it's just the quiet click of a door closing. If you believe everyone deserves to be the architect of their own life, share this story and subscribe for more journeys of reckoning and renewal.